What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about the Assimil8or and the Locutus module from Rossum Assimil8or. In my last video, I did an explanation of the multi-modes, which I thought were really great for using with sequencers that can sequence different lanes or different channels on different MIDI channels. And today I'm going to talk about the Omni and the Uni modes. And those I think are best used with a keyboard, or if you're using them with a sequencer, I think you should think of Assimil8or more like a keyboard or a sampling keyboard or a sampling brain, something for tones. This is really the polyphonic capabilities of Assimil8or. So this really unlocks that and turns it into a polyphonic synth in my brain, or in my opinion. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go grab a sample, and I do have a sample already here that I was planning to use. I believe it's just in the new file, so I actually just got to go find it. Or it's in my file, project file here. It's new 11, right? There we go. So you can hear it's this nice little synth sweep. And so now if I play the keyboard, we can hear that sample come out. The lower I play, the slower the sample. The higher I play, the faster the sample. So I am jumping ahead a little bit. For this setup, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Utility, MIDI Setup, and we're going to say we want the Omni mode, and we're going to start with Dynamic. So just to explain real quick the difference between Omni and Uni. Omni is basically any MIDI channel that Assimil8or receives, it's going to take that information and play it back. So if it receives a CC, note information, anything like that on any channel, it's going to react to it. So this is really great if you just use one MIDI controller. You don't really even know what MIDI channel it's on. You just want to plug in and go. If you do go to the Uni mode has the exact same assignments as the Omni mode. But the reason why you would use that one is that it's only going to pay attention to one channel. And so what that means is that you can actually send multiple channels through the MIDI signal, and then you can get another, you can go out of the MIDI through and talk to another synth. So if you're really trying to talk to multiple things down the line, that's where Uni really is going to be handy. Omni, if you just have one controller and one line going to Assimil8or, Omni's just fine. Then you don't have to worry about what MIDI channel you're on or anything like that. It's just going to work. So we're going to use Omni, and then, like I said, we're just going to stick on Dynamic, and then we're going to take this one sample, and we're just going to copy it to all of the channels on Assimil8or. And a cool new feature for that is you just double click on it and you hit clone, and it clones that one sample and all of its data, basically all of its attributes. It'll just copy down to all 8 of the slots. And now what's cool about that is we have a polyphonic synthesizer. That you can just play with a keyboard. And so that filter sweep is actually sampled. So I took my Juno 106 and I just made a nice single note with a filter sweep and put that on there. If we hold this long enough, I'll go up an octave so it doesn't take too long, you'll hear that it actually does stop. So if we wanted to, we could add a loop point in there to make it loop on the sustain a little bit. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's necessary to show. I think you can figure out how to do that, especially if you're an Assimil8or user. If you are a new Assimil8or user and you need just a crash course in how to use the Assimil8or, I highly recommend John O'Well's videos on the subject. He has a whole tutorial series similar to this one, but very, very focused and all about the Assimil8or. So if you are looking for a crash course, that's where I would go. Cool. So that's pretty much it. That's the Omni mode with the dynamic setting. So one thing I wanted to show is release here. So if we go and let's just say number 1, we want a longer release, right? go even longer than that maybe. Now we're going to clone this one again all the way across so everything has that release. You can hear the ring out, and you can hear that they'll overlap each other, which is really nice. Sounds really natural and sounds like a synthesizer. So basically what's happening is that if a sample is playing and you play another note, it's just going to assign the next voice, which is the very same thing that you would get on an analog polysynth that has only a certain amount of voices that's going to cycle through them. It's the same thing. If one is playing, you're just going to play the next one instead of cutting it off. If for some reason you want that to cut off, but you still want the polyphonic modes, that's where you go to Dynamic 2. So Dynamic 2, you'll hear it when I play the next note, it'll cut it off. So Dynamic 2 is basically going to try to stay on the lowest channel and keep your channel count as low as it can all the time. So if you don't ever overlap, it's just going to stay on 1. However, if you play 4 notes at once, or however many you want, it's going to still let you get polyphonic. So if you want to do a if you want to do a monophonic synth, I do recommend using the multi-mode. And that way you can have one channel be a synth, and then you can still use MIDI channels to get to all the other channels to have them do something else. So if you need more info on that, go to my other videos on this subject, because I am going to cover that. But yeah, for now, you can see that this cuts off. I don't really know why you would want that. I can't think of a situation in my head where I would use Dynamic 2 personally, but if you want it, it's there. But I love Dynamic 1. So real quick, here's a tip. You saw me go in there and change the release, but that's not very dynamic. I can't change it again. So there's a couple things you can do. One, you could change that with CV. So we could go here and say, I want this guy, this 410 output. This is a prototype, so the outputs are backwards. If you notice that, don't worry about it. We're going to go here. We'll go to release, and we'll turn it down. Not too much. I probably went too crazy with it. There we go. Let's just do that right now. CVA. So now we have that on this fader. So that's with CV. But what if we want to do it with a MIDI CC? Well, we can do the same thing that we did in our last video, where we go into use MIDI setup, and we go into CVA, CV and jacks, and we'll change that to a MIDI CC. So I'm going to wiggle this one to figure out what it is. It says it's 21. So I'm just going to go up to MIDI to 21. There's not like a quick learn on this. You only have 3 options here. So it's not that big of a deal. But now we've got that on MIDI 21. I'm going to go into the envelope and assign, I think I've already got it, CVA. So now I've got release on this knob. And it's only working for that one, right? So I am going to have to say, what we're going to do is envelope. We're going to assign it to CV1A, because the rest of them are looking for the A on their own channel. So we're going to go to 1A here, and now we're going to clone it. And so now all of them are going to pay attention to that envelope. So in addition to the Dynamic and Dynamic 2 assignments, we have Chroma, Chroma VZ, and Chroma KZ. I'm just going to show how Chroma works real quick, and then explain VZ and KZ. They're very similar to how they work in the multi-modes, so go check out that video for a little bit more in depth on how VZ and KZ work. But just to show you, we're going to look at these LEDs, and I'm going to go in here, MIDI setup. I've got it Chroma 8. So now when we start on this note, which is I think C0, we're going to go up 8 notes. When we get to that 8th note, you can see it went to that next channel. Now we get to the next one. Now we're to the next channel. So you basically get 8 notes up the scale, up the chromatic scale, until you hit the next sample. And so this can be useful for someone who wants to just have every sample accessible on like an 88 key MIDI controller, but still wants pitch intact for some of the voices. So I don't know how much I'm going to use this one personally. I'm probably going to stick to multi. I think that's the one I gel with the most. If I want to use it like a synth, I'm going to use dynamic. But Chromatic 8 is pretty cool because, like I said, you do have access to all of the voices on one MIDI channel. So again, that's probably another great reason is if your sequencer isn't so robust to have multiple channels, or you just don't want to think about it like that with multiple MIDI channels, Chroma works really great because you can just use one MIDI channel. You can use the Omni mode, so you don't even have to think about the MIDI channels, and then you have all of the samples available and you can pitch them. I do wish that you could pitch them down as well as up. I think you'd probably want to center your sample on note number 4, so that way you can go down and up from what you think of as your root note possibly. But I think I might just need some more time with it to think about what I would do with it. But basically, I just wanted to show how it works. This is it. So on your first C, you're just going to play through 8 notes. And on the 8th note, you're going to reach that next one. So I hope that helps out a little bit with explaining how Chroma works. Chroma VZ, it's basically the exact same thing. However, you're going to now get chromatic. You're going to have velocity access your zones. And then KZ is actually pretty cool because you're going to go through your zones with the notes. And once you get through those 8 notes, you're going to get to the next one. So as I'm talking about it, I do think that this could be really useful for the KZ mode, because if you think about it, you're basically, if you were to fill up all 8 zones on all 8 channels, you would now have a 64 sample keyboard, right? So you could go up the keyboard and you would have 64 samples at your disposal on the keys. So that could be really useful and really easy to just manage what samples you want. You wouldn't get pitch at that point, but again, there's plenty of ways to reach pitch, whether it's CV or CC or anything like that. So I hope this helps out. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.